Hey there, my name is Justin Beck, and I'm here at 343 Labs in New York City. I am a music producer, songwriter, engineer, and composer, and I'm here to talk to you today about 11 things that I wish I had known when I was just starting off. The reason I think this is important is because, these days, in terms of, YouTube and online forums, there's so many different ways that you can be learning music production. I think it can be really, really overwhelming at times trying to figure out where to start and, how to find good information and, what the right way to approach this is. So I hope that you find this video helpful. The first thing is you should seek instruction. Now, I didn't do this for a very long time, and to this day, I regret it. So, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sign up for classes, at an accredited school or find some specialty trade school that does that. But what it does mean is that I think it's a big mistake to kind of just stubbornly do it all yourself and think that you can learn everything on your own. Going onto YouTube is all well and good. Diving through Reddit forums or going on to, Discord and things like that, that's all cool. But there's definitely something to be said for sitting down in a classroom, if you have the opportunity or finances to do so, and getting some proper instruction. Really, the reason for that is because you're going to get, exposed to people such as myself who have a lot of experience that are going to be able to tell you, these are the core fundamentals you need to be focusing on and learning. A lot of the times people are putting the cart in front of the horse, so to speak, in terms of trying to maybe learn things that are far too complicated early on without getting a grasp of the fundamentals. So the second thing I'd recommend is familiarize yourself with music theory. Now, this can, I think, be a bit of a controversial subject amongst aspiring musicians and producers because a lot of people feel like when you learn, or rather by learning music theory, that you are somehow inhibiting your creativity and buying into, some schematic or matrix that's going to box you in. But the truth is, it's the exact opposite. I did not learn music theory in any kind of meaningful way for a very long time. And the moment that I did and really started getting a grasp on things, I instantly regretted not having done it earlier. The thing with music theory is that unless you learn it from like a very young age, like 5 years old, and you're brought up in that school of thought, it's going to have absolutely no influence on your creativity and your ability to be creative. If anything, it's actually going to increase that, right? It's really just like words. It's like a language, essentially. If you're trying to write a poem and you don't have the words to express yourself the way you want to, your poem's going to be shittier, So music theory essentially is just the language of music. And, like these days, if I want to make a, major 7 chord, I know exactly how to do it. And not only that, I know what it sounds like, right? So I know what the next note I'm actually looking for is in relation to the one that I'm playing. And things like that, It's just really more than anything a way to shorten the distance between what you hear in your head and being able to execute it in real time. So number 3, and this is a big one for all you people who are truly, truly beginners. Your DAW does not matter. So in case that still doesn't make sense to you, what I mean is your digital audio workstation does not matter. And in case that still doesn't make sense to you, what that means is Ableton, Logic, Fruity Loops, Bitwig, whatever you're using, it's fine. It's really all just about the way that you use the program, right? And people who say, Ableton sounds better than Logic or Pro Tools sounds the best or this or that are honestly all full of it. They all are working off the exact same level of bit depth. You can look up what that means if you want to understand that more. I'm not going to go into detail. And the bottom line is, they all kind of specialize at doing different things. What I will say is this, is that, if I'm recording a live band, I'll probably use Pro Tools. If I'm just doing a songwriting session and trying to take that and build into a bigger production, maybe I'll use Logic. If I'm trying to make some crazy experimental, maybe sample-based song, I might use Ableton. Now, with that being said, I can do all of those things in each of those. It's just that maybe some of them are optimized to do the tasks better. But the bottom line is that it doesn't matter what DAW you're using. Don't think that that's going to have any impact on your capacity to make dope music. Number 4 is learn synthesis. Now, if you're watching this video and you're a singer-songwriter, and you're like, well, I don't care about electronic music, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't need to learn synthesis. I would ask you to maybe reconsider that point. We now live in a day and age where electronic sounds are ubiquitous. It doesn't matter the style of music that you're doing. You could, go as far afield as contemporary jazz. And there's a lot of really cool stuff happening with synthesizers in conjunction with live instrumentation. Now, with that being said, I'm assuming if you're watching this video that you're probably into electronic music or hip hop or something. And so in terms of learning synthesis, the reason this is so important is because, again, similar to the music theory thing, it's just a way to shorten the distance between what you're hearing in your head and what you ultimately can create in real time. And, I remember the years, and realistically, I think there have probably been more years than there have been years that I know where I didn't know synthesis. And during that time, there's just that frustration, of going through the preset on your synthesizer, whether it's a hardware synthesizer or a plug-in synthesizer, whether you paid $300 for it or whether you got it for free with Ableton, and just being like, that string sound doesn't sound exactly like that artist that I like, or, oh, how does that artist get that really nice defined bass, And the thing that you're gonna find is that it's not compression, it's not equalization, it's not crazy effects. It's really just like having a fundamental understanding of how to shape a tone properly. And if you can do that, it's so powerful, and you're gonna be able to make much more unique, idiosyncratic music much faster. So number 5 is you do not need expensive plugins or gear. I'm just gonna say that again. You do not need expensive plugins or gear. This is like the absolute, trap that everyone falls into, myself included. To this day, I'll be on Instagram and I'll get an ad for some, $4,000 vintage microphone. I'm like, I need it, I don't need it. I never needed it, and I never will need it. I want it. That's different. But the bottom line is that, all of these plugin companies specifically, I really want to focus on that a little bit. They are specifically selling you on the notion that in order to make a hit song, in order to sound professional, you need tools to do it, specific tools. And if you don't have them, it's just not possible. And that is just categorical bullshit. There's no other way to say it. You really, more than anything, you just want to learn your tools, right? So, I was teaching for a while, and when I was doing that, students would always ask me, what are the best plugins I should get? What plugin do I need right now? And what I always tell them is learn all of the stock plugins in your DAW first. Become a master at using them. And then once you've done that, you'll see, oh, I wish I had maybe a better reverb plugin, or, oh, I wish I had an EQ that I could boost more aggressively with that would sound a little less harsh. Oh, I wish I had a compressor that could snap a little bit more. But the thing is that if you don't know how to use those things to begin with, you're just in the same boat. You just paid a bunch of money to have something that you still don't fully understand how to use. I remember I've done sessions with artists before where they're using some crazy plug-in chain on their master bus, and they're like, oh, well, I saw this and so told me to do this, and this artist always uses this exact chain. It's like, yeah, but their music sounds completely different, And so I really just can't hammer this home enough. You don't need expensive plugins, okay? You don't need expensive gear. You don't need the nicest audio interface. You don't need the nicest speakers, the nicest headphones. You just need stuff that works, and you just need to focus on building an understanding of how to use those things. It's the most important thing. Number 6 is explore other genres. Now, this one is so important. I really can't stress this enough. This is going to be the thing that really elevates your production game and also elevates your creative game. If you're a house head, make hip hop. If you're a hip hop person, make house. Try to make some rock. If you're a singer-songwriter, see what happens if you try to program a whole song instead of writing it on a piano or whatever, Bottom line is that, and this also applies to like more micro things. Like if you're a deep house producer, don't be afraid to make tech house. If you're a minimal techno person, don't be afraid to make big room techno, whatever it is. The bottom line is that every single time that you try to make something in another genre, you're going to learn something new. There are production techniques that you use for hip hop that are totally applicable in techno. There are production techniques in techno that are totally applicable to pop. There are production techniques in pop that are totally applicable to techno. It's this kind of circle. And the bottom line is that as a music producer, what you really want to do is refine your skills and your toolbox, so to speak, so that when you know that you need a certain something, you know how to do it and you know what to do, right? If you're a house music producer and you start a track every single time by going kick, clap, 909 hi-hat, you're not really breaking the mold here. And maybe you don't want to, but the thing is that in order to stand out as a musician, as a music producer, especially these days where everybody is trying to do this. And, it's so easy to get your music out there. You do need something that makes you stand out. And exploring, other genres and producing other styles is going to definitely give you a little bit more of an idiosyncratic thing to put your own stamp on the music. So number 7 jumps right off the back of number 6, which is listen to music you wouldn't normally listen to, and listen critically. Now, I didn't do this for a long time, and the second that I started doing it, my music became way more interesting and way cooler. When I was about 14 or 15 is when I got absolutely obsessed with dance music and electronic music. And while I, would listen to a little bit of this and a little bit of that here and there, I really was just a, pure obsessive consumer of electronic music. And there's nothing wrong with that, I just want to say. But if you're trying to be a music producer and you're really trying, again, to stand out and be, unique, you are gonna need something a little bit more than just the average formula, from the genre that you like. And listening to other music is gonna just absolutely expand your mind. If you're a writer, they tell you to read as much as possible. It's the exact same thing with music. If you're a music producer, if you're an engineer, composer, whatever it is, just listen as much as possible. I spend a lot of my time listening to music that I don't necessarily love, but that I'm interested by. Because I'm like, how did they produce this? I'm not a big pop music consumer, but when I see that, Harry Styles or Lizzo or whoever it is comes out with some new record that's smashing the charts, I go and listen because I'm curious. I'm like, okay, what's going on in here that's making it so, effective and successful? And, at the same time, if you go and listen to some like West African psychedelic music from the 60s, you're going to hear some crazy stuff that you didn't even realize was possible maybe in music, So, I remember very vividly having a conversation with this dubstep producer where one time I was like, yo, you should like record live drum samples and try to make dubstep with that. I've never heard that before. That would be kind of cool. And he was like, nah, that's not what I do, And so I think that the summary here is don't be closed-minded and listen critically, whatever you're listening to, because what it's going to allow you to do is gain a better insight into how to craft your own work even better. Number 8 is learn to wear different hats. Now, this one is very, very important if you're trying to build a career as a music person. Now, I'm saying music person rather than musician or a music producer because there's so many different ways to make money being involved in music. You can be a producer, you could be an artist, and those are definitely the 2 hardest ones. Viable paths, but the hardest. Then you could be an engineer. You could be a composer for film or for video games or for commercials and things like that. You'd be shocked the kind of money you can make doing that. You could also be a songwriter, There's so much money to be made out there in the music industry and so many different avenues for doing it. And the thing is that if you just box yourself in and say, I'm only going to be a songwriter, I'm only going to be an artist, I'm only going to be this, I'm only going to be that, you're cutting yourself short. And ultimately, you're actually kind of impinging on your capacity to maybe even become a better version of what you want to be. So, for instance, I make my income kind of multifariously from production, my own artistry, whether it be royalties and performance, from mixing and mastering stuff, from composing for film and sometimes for commercials, and then also doing songwriting, right? And the thing is that even the most successful producers are doing that as well. If you look at someone like Johnny Greenwood, who's an absolute legend, the guitar player from Radiohead, he scores films. Same thing with Trent Reznor. So there's just a lot of different avenues to go with this. Now, if you're dead set in your head, I'm only going to be a mix engineer, or I'm only going to be a producer and not an artist, or I'm only going to be an artist. The thing is that the more that you build a foundation in these other skills, the more it's going to allow you to be an even freer version of whatever that thing is, right? If you're just a mix engineer who has a sterile technical relationship with what you're hearing, you're not going to make very evocative, soulful mixes. If you're just a music producer who has absolutely no idea how to engineer or has absolutely no perspective on what mixing is, your stuff's going to sound bad. If you're just an artist who isn't that interested in the intricacies of production, or doesn't understand a little bit about, what a final mix or master is supposed to sound like, then you may find yourself being constantly frustrated, not being able to get the sound that you want, right? And if you're a film composer, you're going to be able to want to reach into all of these different baskets and take out all these different interesting sounds and skills. And you're going to need to know a little bit about how to, mix things and how to produce things and how to songwrite a little bit, So I really recommend that you try to learn as many different skills as possible and have a goal, the thing that you're working towards, but also, be flexible with what you're doing along the way, and don't be upset if you end up becoming the world's best mix engineer if you first intended to become the world's biggest artist. Number 9, there are no rules, only principles. This is, I think, the most important thing, honestly, when you're learning, no matter what skill level you're at. Essentially, just be wary of anyone or any stream of information that is telling you there's only one way to do something. There isn't. You can produce music any way that you want to. That being said, there are definitely some approaches, that are time tested. And that doesn't mean that they're always right, but what it kind of means is that they're a decent starting point. I'm a big believer that in order to, recreate the wheel, you need to learn how to build the wheel first. So, I like steeping myself in technical tradition and things like that, but always I'm taking it with a grain of salt. Anyone who says you have to, put a compressor before an equalizer, or an equalizer before a compressor, or distortion before echo, or this, or whatever it is, right? That's just how it works for them, Ultimately, this is a creative field, and don't lose sight of that. You can be creative every single step of the way. The only thing that matters is that it sounds good as it connects with people. It literally doesn't matter. You can be farting into a microphone, and if somehow that sounds like Jimi Hendrix, you fucking did it, dude. Number 10, don't be an asshole. Now, this is simple advice that has nothing to do with the music itself. This is just as someone who's worked in the industry for many, many years. Honestly, I didn't come up with that advice on my own. I one time heard someone give that advice. And at the time, I was like, okay, I guess. But he was totally right. I think it was like an A&R guy from Capitol Records or something, which is ironic because he was probably an asshole. But ultimately, right, it's a who you know industry. It's just like everything else, okay? And the bottom line is that it's filled with egos, people who think they're the best, people who think they deserve to be stars. And the most humble people are the ones who are the most pleasant to be around and the most pleasant to work with. And the honest to God truth is that I would rather work with someone who's a little less talented but easier to deal with than someone who is a super genius but is just miserable to be around. At the end of the day, it's just not worth it. There are enough talented people out there. You don't have to surround yourself with assholes. And if you're feeling insecure and feel like you need to project some kind of bravado in this industry to make people want to work with you, I highly recommend not doing that, because the bottom line is that there are a ton of talented people and they will suss you out immediately. The second you sit down in a studio or in front of a computer or in front of an instrument, if you can't do it, that's all that matters, So just be humble, be patient, and focus on becoming the best musician and producer and person that you can be. Which leads me to number 11, which is be patient. I can't stress this enough. Music is a passionate endeavor, right? You're doing it because you love it. Maybe you want to make $1 million, but you want to make $1 million doing this because you think it's fun. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't care about the money and you're just doing it because you love it. But the bottom line is that if you're just starting off in this process, there's probably some end goal that you dream of or envision. And the thing is that it's going to take a while. It will. That's not to be discouraging. Some people do it faster than others. Some people just have a bit of a more natural ear for doing it, a better sense of composition, more exposure to music. And some people are just freakishly fast learners, The bottom line is that learn at your own pace and don't feel bad about it, And don't feel like you need to make a professional grade track, tomorrow. If you've been doing this for under a year, the odds of you making anything that sounds even remotely professional is pretty distant. And if you're even close to that, you're doing amazing, I started producing music when I was 15 and started obsessing about it when I was 16, 17. And I didn't make my first professional sounding record till I was around 20. And then I had my first record release when I was 21. So, that's I don't know, count that how you will, somewhere between 3 and 5 years, right? That being said, I taught at this school, 343, for a few years, and there, were students who came, and within 6 months, they were making really good stuff. But I can tell you that the reason for that is because they were working super hard, right? So I would say, be patient, but the kind of footnote to that is work your ass off. Because the more hard work that you put in, the faster you're going to get to where you want to go. But ultimately, take it easy on yourself. It's a long process and it's supposed to be fun. So, be patient and enjoy the ride. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Again, my name is Justin Beck and I'm here at 343 Labs in New York City. It's a music school that's also based online, and if you think that you're ready to learn or are interested in learning more, visit 343labs.com.
Looks like my family.